Thank you. Good morning. How are you all? Yeah, we'll see. In the late 1960s, there was a young man growing up in Long Island, New York, and his dream was to become a great musician. So he dropped out of high school and he began traveling back and forth across America playing his music wherever people would listen. But as a high school dropout and with very little experience as a musician, he found it real tough to get work. And so he found himself playing in these tiny little clubs and bars to a handful of drunks each night. And that wasn't his dream. His dream was to become a famous musician. His dream was to, play to huge crowds of people. His dream was to walk down the street and have people ask him for his autograph. His dream was to turn the radio on, hear his music on the radio, walk into music stores, find his music there. His dream wasn't to be playing to these handful of drunks in these tiny little clubs and bars each night. He was so poor, he used to sleep in laundromats as he traveled back and forth across America. And his only joy in life was his girlfriend. But her dream was to be married to a famous musician. And that wasn't exactly working out. So one day, she broke up with him. A young musician, he was devastated. He was professionally, he was bankrupt. Financially, he was bankrupt. Emotionally, he was bankrupt. He went home and in a half-hearted attempt to kill himself, he drank a bottle of poisoned furniture polish and a bottle of vodka. He didn't kill himself. He woke up 34 hours later. And that afternoon, he checked himself into a mental institution. 3 weeks later, he checked himself out of that mental institution. A new man, in many ways, completely resolved to do whatever it took to pursue his dream and to become a great musician. What had happened? What had changed his perspective? What had changed him? Well, it wasn't medication. They hadn't given him any. And it wasn't anything the doctors and nurses had said. But rather, the other patients had given him a new perspective. The other patients had given him a new view of himself and a new view of his life. So 3 weeks later, he checked himself out of that mental institution, completely resolved to do whatever it took to pursue his dream. 3 years later, he wrote a song called Piano Man. And today, there's hardly a person on the planet who doesn't know who Billy Joel is. I don't tell you the story because Billy Joel is anyone to look up to. Certainly in many ways he is not. I tell you the story because at different times in our lives, we all need to step back from who we are and where we are and what we're doing and get another look at who we are and where we are and what we're doing. And that's what we have a chance to do here today. That's what we have a chance to do here this weekend, is to step back from who we are and where we are and what we're doing and get another look at who we are and where we are and what we're doing. Because the great danger is that we fall into the trap of believing that the whole world is like the street we live on. The great danger is that we do get caught up in our own little worlds. The great danger is that we fall into the trap of believing that the whole world is like the city we live in. And the reason it's a great danger is because the way we see the world determines the way we live our lives. The way we see the world determines the way we live our lives. How do you see the world? What's your worldview? What's your worldview? What's your world perspective? Because you see, if we reduce the world's population to 100 people proportionally, 57 of those 100 people would come from Asia, 21 from Europe, 14 from North and South America, and 8 from Africa. 51 would be women, 49 would be men. 68 of those 100 people would not be able to read and write. How do you see the world? 68% of the world's population cannot read and write. 6 of those 100 people would own and control more than 50% of the world's wealth. All of those 6 people would be US citizens. 1 of those 100 people would have just been born. 1 of those 100 people would be just about to die. And only 1 of those 100 people would have been to college. How do you see the world? Maybe in your world, everyone goes to college. But on planet Earth, 1 in 100 people have a college experience. 1/3 of the world's population is dying from lack of bread. Think about it. 2 billion people are hungry today just for bread. Africa alone, 50,000 people die every day. From what? Extreme poverty and preventable disease. 50,000 people. Really dying, real people, really dying every day. 2 billion people, 1/3 of the world's population, hungry just for bread. 1/3 of the world's population dying from lack of justice, and 1/3 of the world's population dying from overeating. How do you see the world? Because the way we see the world determines the way we live our lives. The way we see the world determines the way we live our lives. And the constant challenge is to draw ourselves out of our own little worlds. And the constant challenge for the people we interact with, the people we're trying to inspire, is to draw them out of their own little worlds. You know, I grew up in Australia, and I have 7 brothers, and a brother immediately older than me is Andrew, and he's 2 years older than me, and when I was a kid, I used to play in the sandbox with Andrew. And for a couple of years, Andrew and I, we played together happily in the sandbox. You know, my mother used to come out in the morning and draw a line down the middle of the sandbox. You know, one half for Andrew and one half for Matthew. And, well, like I say, for a couple of years, we played together happily in the sandbox, until one day Andrew decided that he wanted to be a property developer, you know, and that he needed a little bit of extra land. You know, this is back in the late 70s. You know, and already back in the late 70s, Andrew was obviously a man before his time. Because back in the late 70s, he was already practicing business in a way which really only became popular in America in the 90s. You know, he took his shovel and he hit me over the head with it. He was a visionary, you know? Visionary. Yeah, he took his shovel, he hit me over the head with it, you know, and I went inside screaming and crying, thinking, hoping, believing that my mother would come and deliver some justice to this obvious situation of injustice. But no sign of my mother. So I sat in the middle of the kitchen floor, I screamed and cried a little bit louder. Still no sign of my mother. So then I stopped screaming and crying, and now I could hear my mother upstairs whistling to herself. I knew she could hear me crying. I knew she was ignoring me. I knew Andrew had taken over the sandbox. And a great anger began to build up in me. This great anger began to build up in me, and then, all of a sudden, a moment of inspiration. It occurred to me that on Thursday afternoons, my mother used to take my brothers and I grocery shopping. All of us. To help. And if we were good boys while my mother was doing the grocery shopping, if we were good boys, which we always were, you know, at the end of the shopping expedition, my mother used to buy us a small chocolate, maybe in the shape of a truck or a bus or a car or a plane or a train, a little chocolate wrapped in, you know, aluminum foil. And I really liked chocolate, so I used to eat my chocolate on the way home from the store, you know. But my brother Andrew, he likes to collect things. And sitting in the middle of the kitchen floor, it had occurred to me that Andrew's chocolate collection had become so vast that my mother had emptied the entire bottom shelf of the refrigerator to house Andrew's chocolate collection, to protect Andrew's chocolate collection, because it gets hot down there in Australia. And Andrew was in the sandbox now, wasn't he? And my mother obviously was not coming downstairs until she'd finished doing whatever it was she was doing, so I walked over to the refrigerator and I opened the refrigerator door. And there they were. As family legend would have it, there were 144 chocolates in Andrew's collection that morning. I didn't eat the chocolates straight away. First, I just took them all neatly out of the fridge and I arranged them in the middle of the kitchen floor. I had rows of trucks and rows of buses and parking garages and airports and train stations all neatly set up, and then one by one I began to devour Andrew's chocolate collection. As family legend would also have it, my mother came downstairs about 45 minutes later. She walked into the kitchen while I was eating the 47th chocolate, and she looked at me and she screamed at the top of her voice, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And you know what? I think it's a question we've got to ask ourselves from time to time. What are we doing? What are you doing? What are you doing with your one short life? Because life is short. And I don't know if you've noticed, but you're dead an awful long time. It's proven. This is not idle speculation. What are we doing? Three questions I want to talk to you about today. Number one, what do you want? What is it that you want? What do you want for yourself? What do you want from life? What do you want? You want to be happy. Yes or yes? Yeah, you want to be happy. You want to be happy. I want to be happy. Your friends want to be happy. Your spouse wants to be happy. Your boyfriend, girlfriend wants to be happy. Your parents want to be happy. Every single person you meet wants to be happy. We want the same thing. That's critical. You're going to relate with people in any way, you've got to understand that. You've got to relate with people in any single way. You have got to understand that we all have a common yearning, and that yearning is for happiness. Now, from time to time, some people do some really stupid things, and we scratch our heads and we think to ourselves, why would anyone do anything so stupid? The answer is simple. Because they mistakenly believe that those stupid things will make them happy. People don't wake up in the morning and say, gee, it's a lovely day. I wonder, how can I make myself miserable today? You know? It doesn't work like that. People want happiness. People yearn for happiness, and we do the things we do because we believe they will make us happy. We do the things we do. What do you want? You want to be happy. And our culture makes out that this happiness is constantly outside of our reach. We keep reaching for it, but we can never quite grasp it. We keep reaching for it, but we can never quite get our hands on it. And that's a lie. That is a myth. That is a miscredited fantasy. There are four aspects of the human person: physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. Physically, if you exercise regularly, and you eat the right sorts of food, and you sleep regularly, how do you feel? I got to tell you, it doesn't sound like you have an awful lot of experience with that. Physically, if you exercise regularly, and you eat the right sorts of food, and you sleep regularly, how do you feel? You feel great. You feel more fully alive. You feel better about yourself, and you feel better about life. You're healthier. You're happier. When you exercise regularly, when you eat the right sorts of food, when you sleep, you're just happier. Emotionally, every single one of us knows the happiest people on the planet are the people who have great relationships, dynamic relationships. That's what life, that's what animates us. Dynamic relationships, they're the happiest people on the planet. And why are we so happy when we're in dynamic relationships? Because we switch the focus off ourselves and onto another. When we put the focus on ourselves, we begin to cave in. Put the focus off ourselves, we begin to expand, we begin to grow. We put the focus off ourselves and onto another, and as we do, our ability to love increases. And as our ability to love increases, our ability to be loved increases. And we feel more fully alive. And we feel better about ourselves, and we feel better about life, and we're healthier, and we're happier. Intellectually, you take 10 or 15 minutes to read a great book. Not 3 hours a day, 10 or 15 minutes a day to read great books. What happens? Your vision of yourself expands, your vision of the world expands, you become more focused, more alert, more vibrant, more vital. You feel more fully alive. You're healthier, you're happier. You have a richer, more abundant experience of life. And finally, spiritually, you take a few moments each day to step into the classroom of silence. You take a few moments each day to step into the classroom of silence, to get reconnected with yourself and to develop a sense of what you're here for. What happens? A sense of peace begins to emerge. A sense of purpose begins to emerge. A sense of direction begins to emerge. You feel more fully alive. You're healthier. You're happier. You feel better about yourself. You feel better about life. And you have a richer, more abundant experience of life. Physically, emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually, we all know the things that make us happy. Yes or yes? We just don't do them. That's the insanity of our modern culture. On one hand, we all want to be happy. On the other hand, we all know the things that make us happy, but we don't do the things that make us happy. And why don't we do the things that make us happy? Because we're too busy trying to be happy. That's the insanity of our modern culture. That's the insanity of our modern life. Don't exercise regularly. Why? Too busy. Don't eat the right sorts of food. Why? We're too busy. It's too easy to go through the drive-thru, and we're too busy. Don't sleep regularly. Why? Because there's still only 24 hours in the day, isn't there? And your to-do list just gets longer and longer and longer and longer, and you never get caught up. You just get more and more behind every day. You wake up most days, you feel like your life would go on with or without you. You feel like your life has a momentum of its own. You know, caught up. Seriously, when was the last time you sat down and you said to yourself, I'm caught up now. Yeah, I'm good and caught up now. Yeah. Let's take care of that important stuff now. I'm caught up. Yeah. No, you don't sleep regularly. Why? Because in the 45 minutes before you go to bed each night, you rush around telling yourself, if I can just get these 45 things done before I go to bed, I'll be ready for tomorrow. You wake up the next morning, you're still tired. Why? Because when you went to bed, you were still restless. You didn't get enough rest. You wake up the next morning, you're still tired. Now, we don't sleep regularly. Why? Because we're too busy. Emotionally, we all know the happiest people on the planet are the people who have great relationships, and relationships thrive under one condition: carefree timelessness. Carefree timelessness. You gift your relationships with carefree timelessness, they will blossom, they will bloom, they will thrive. Nothing is surer. You gift your relationships with carefree timelessness, they will blossom, they will bloom. Nothing is surer. Nothing is sure. Every relationship thrives under the condition of carefree timelessness. It doesn't matter if it's with your customer, with your girlfriend, with your boyfriend, with your spouse, with your children. Every relationship thrives under the condition of carefree timelessness. But we don't gift our relationships with carefree timelessness. We shove them into 2 minutes here, 1 minute there, an instant message there, an emailed message there, a cell phone call there, and we expect them to thrive. And they can't. They just can't. Carefree timelessness. Who are the experts at this? Teenagers. Teenagers. Teenagers are carefree timelessness experts. You know, and what do teenagers do? They talk on the phone. Yes or yes? Yeah, they talk on the phone. How long do they talk on the phone for? Forever. So Johnny's on the phone for 4 hours, and Johnny gets off the phone. You say, Johnny, who are you talking to? Johnny says, Susan. Susan is Johnny's girlfriend. You say, Johnny, 4 hours. What were you guys talking about? What does Johnny say? Nothing. Carefree timelessness. Carefree timelessness. That is the reason people fall in love so easily. Young people. That's the reason teenagers fall in love so easily. The reason the rest of us fall out of love so easily. Carefree timelessness, or lack of it. We don't gift our relationships with that. Why? Because we're too busy. Intellectually, we don't take those 10 or 15 minutes to read great books that expand our vision of ourselves and expand our vision of the world. Why? We're too busy. And spiritually, we don't take that time to step into the classroom of silence, to get reconnected with ourselves and to develop a sense of what we're here for. Not like we should. We don't take that time. Why? Because we're too busy. Begs the question, doesn't it? What are we all so busy doing? Let me tell you. For the most part, we're too busy doing just about everything that means just about nothing to just about nobody, just about anywhere, and will mean even less to anyone 100 years from now. And isn't it any wonder that someone might want to march into our lives and say, what are you doing? Question number one, what do you want? You want to be happy. Question number two, what are we here for? I mean, what is it all about? You know, what is it all about? You're here to become the best version of yourself. You know, a fish doesn't try to be a bird. Yeah, a bird doesn't try to be a lion. A fish doesn't even think about it. A fish just is the best fish it can be, you know? But somewhere in this human experience, we get caught up in all these comparisons. Or she this, or he that, or... You're here to become the best version of yourself. That's what we're here for. To become the best version of yourself. And that is our essential purpose. And that's what we've lost in our culture. This sense of this great essential purpose. Because everything makes sense in relation to our essential purpose. You know, what makes a good friend? Really, when it comes down to it, what makes a good friend? Well, you go back to your room tonight, you make a list of your friends, and then you go through that list and you ask yourself, which of those people are helping you to become the best version of yourself? You find a friend like that, you best hang on to a friend like that. They're pretty hard to find. But then you go back through that list and you ask yourself, which of those people are you helping to become the best version of themselves? Because that's what makes you a great friend. Everything makes sense in relation to our essential purpose. Our essential purpose is to be what we are, be what we're created to be, become the best version of ourselves. What makes a good movie? Good movie is a movie you walk out of saying, that movie inspired me to want to be a better version of myself. What makes good music? Good music is music that inspires you to be all you can be. What makes a good book? A good book's a book you put it down and you say, that book challenged me to become the best version of myself. Why do we send kids to school? To learn the disciplines necessary to go out into that crazy, noisy, busy world and celebrate the best version of themselves. We go to school, we send kids to school to learn the disciplines necessary to celebrate and defend the best version of themselves. Why do we go to work? Why do we go to work? To make money? No. No, that's not what it's about. Life is not about selling Cutco knives. It's just not. It's just not. And the people in the leadership at Cutco, they know that. Life is not about selling Cutco knives. Why do we go to work? To make money? No. Making money is the secondary value of work. The primary value of work is that when we work hard, we become a better version of ourselves. You know, if you think going through this process, if you think going through this process isn't making you a better version of yourself, you better take another look. Most people never really have to earn their money. They just show up on Thursday and pick up their paycheck. They don't even have to pick it up anymore, just direct deposits into their bank account. Most people never really have to go out and do what you do. They never have to. But the character that you develop by doing what you're doing, that's powerful. That's powerful. Yeah, you're selling some knives for Cutco, but they are giving you an opportunity to develop character that will serve you through your whole life. That will serve. The primary value of work is that when we work hard, we become a better version of ourselves. When we work well, we become a better version of ourselves. When we pay attention to the details of our work, we become a better version of ourselves. And the best thing you can do is become the best version of yourself. Best thing you can do for yourself, become the best version of yourself. Best thing you can do for your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, strive to become the best version of yourself. Best thing you can do for your kids, strive to become the best version of yourself. Best thing you can do for your family, best thing you can do for your nation, best thing you can do for your company, strive to become the best version of yourself, because everyone benefits when you improve as a human being. Everyone benefits when you improve. Every aspect of your life improves when you're striving and growing to become the best version of yourself. Everything makes sense in relation to our essential purpose. Our essential purpose is to become the best version of ourselves. What is our essential purpose? Pretty passionate bunch. I got to tell you that. I bet you'll sell lots of knives with that sort of passion. Our essential purpose is to become the best version of ourselves. What is our essential purpose? That's better, because for a moment there I thought I was buying a knife in the knife aisle at Target. Our essential purpose is to become the best version of ourselves. And everything should be embraced or rejected according to how it affects that. So next time you're thinking about going through the drive-thru, I just want you to ask yourself one question. Is what I'm about to eat going to help me become the best version of myself? Because there it is, it's there. That's the dream. That's the dream. That's the ultimate dream. The ultimate dream to become and strive to become the best version of yourself. Could you have a better dream for your boyfriend or your girlfriend than to want him or her to become the best version of themselves? Could you have a better dream for your spouse than to want him or her to become the best version of themselves? Could you have a better dream for your children than to want them to become the best version of themselves? Could you have a better dream for your friend? It's the ultimate dream. It's the ultimate dream. That's what we're here for. It's to live the dream. It's to live the dream. That ultimate, all-encompassing dream is the dream to become the best version of ourselves, and that is what makes sense of everything else. 3 questions. Number 1, what do you want? You want to be happy. Number 2, what are we here for? To become the best version of ourselves. Number 3, raise your hand if you would like a little bit more energy in your life. Yeah, I see some of you need it so bad you can't even get your hands up. Energy. Energy. One of the great myths of the 20th century was that time is our most valuable resource. Particularly in the corporate culture in the 20th century, they kept telling us and reinforcing this idea that time is your most valuable resource, time is your most valuable resource, time is your most valuable resource. Guard your time, protect your time, plan your time, defend your time, don't waste your time, because time is life and life is time, and if you're wasting your time, you're wasting your life. So guard your time. So what do? We all went out, we got our Franklin Covey planners. You know, so we could plan our time. Then we went out, we got Palm Pilots. We could plan a little bit more time. And we took courses about time management and read books about time management, listened to tapes about time management, because they kept telling us time is your most valuable resource, time is your most valuable resource, time is your most valuable resource, guard your time, protect your time, defend your time, don't waste your time. You know, they kept telling us this idea over and over throughout the last 20 years or so of the 20th century, and as it turns out, they were wrong. Time is not your most valuable resource. Time, 24 hours. You get 24 hours a day, I get 24 hours a day, you get 24 hours a day. In the area of time, we actually have some of this equality that we hear politicians talking about all the time. You know, it actually exists here, 24 hours a day. It doesn't matter how much money you have. You still just get 24 hours a day. You know, it's not like you can buy an extra hour. You know, it doesn't matter how well you kick a football or where you went to school or who your parents are, you still just get 24 hours a day. But some people do an awful lot more with their 24 hours than others. Yes or yes? Why? Because energy is our most valuable resource. Our experience of life expands the more energy we have. The more energy we have, the more our experience of life expands. It's about energy. It's about energy. Question becomes, who's in control of the energy? Yeah, we are. It's not like there's some energy guru out there, you know. It's not like you've got to talk to the energy guru each morning. Oh, please, energy guru, please send me a little bit more. Oh, come on, energy guru, I'm tired. I had a late night, energy guru. Please send me a little bit more, energy guru. Who's in control of the energy? We are. Are you kidding me? Let me ask you a question. If you woke up tomorrow morning, all of a sudden you owned $1 million racehorse, you'd be pretty happy about that. Yes or yes? How many of you, just raise your hand, how many of you would let your $1 million racehorse eat at McDonald's? I mean, I'm just curious. You know? Just curious. No, you wouldn't do it. Why? Because you're not an idiot. You know? You're not. Don't listen to the rumors. You're not. You know why? Because if you own $1 million racehorse, there's probably a fairly good chance you'd want your $1 million racehorse to win a race. So how many of you leading up to the big race are going to make McDonald's part of your $1 million racehorse's training regimen? You know, just pulling up to McDonald's each day after training and say, yeah, listen, we'll have 36 Big Macs, 18 supersized fries, and 12 Cokes. What size? The big ones. Yeah, those really big ones, the supersized ones, the ones as big as my head, the ones big enough to drown my dog in, those ones. You know? I mean, who needs that much Coke? You wouldn't do it, would you? You wouldn't feed your $1 million racehorse McDonald's. Why? Because you know it wouldn't be good for it. You know it wouldn't get any energy from it. You know it wouldn't help win the race. You simply wouldn't disrespect your $1 million racehorse by feeding McDonald's. But you and I, straight through the drive-thru. Yeah. And isn't it any wonder we need someone to march into our kitchen and say, what are you doing? Who's in control of the energy? We are. We're in control of the energy. And it's all about energy, let me tell you. It's all about energy. You got the energy? You got the energy? You're going to be enthused. You're going to be invigorated to get into what you're doing. You're tired all the time? You're not going to sell nothing. You know? You're not going to sell nothing. You'll be on like that 6-month thing that I talked about yesterday. People be picking up your clients left, right, and center. You'll be disappearing off the rep list. Energy. Energy. All right. Let's do this for a minute. Let me get those of you who are not already asleep just to close your eyes here for a minute, if you could. Close your eyes here for a minute, and I'm going to read a list of words. I want you to pick out the word that most describes how you most often feel in the midst of your daily activity. Depressed, exhausted, burned out, defeated, overwhelmed, angry, fearful, anxious, defensive, resentful, mellow, serene, confident, joyful, enthusiastic, and invigorated. All right, open your eyes. 4 levels of energy. The first level of energy, depressed, exhausted, burned out, defeated, overwhelmed. We all experience that from time to time. Yes or yes? How often do you want to experience the first level of energy? Never. Second level of energy, angry, fearful, anxious, defensive, resentful. We all experience that from time to time. How often do you want to experience that one? Never. Third level of energy is mellow and serene. We all experience that from time to time. Yes or yes? Fleeting moments, aren't they? Wonderful, fleeting moments. And the fourth level of energy, confident, joyful, enthusiastic, and invigorated. How often do you want to experience that? All the time. And you want to be around people who've got that. Yes or yes? Yeah, you want to be around people who are confident, joyful, enthusiastic, invigorated. Why? Because it's contagious and you feed off their energy and they give you energy. Confident, joyful. What would happen if you showed up? What would happen if you showed up to wherever you work or the people you work with, you know, and every single person was confident, joyful, enthusiastic, invigorated, you know? What would you think to yourself, you know? Yeah, where's the Kool-Aid? Yeah, okay. Well, confident, joyful, enthusiastic, and invigorated. Good qualities, aren't they? You sell more knives. The more of that you got, you'd sell more knives. Yes or yes? Yes. Yeah, confident, joyful, enthusiastic, invigorated. Because the truth is, you and I, we're billboards. We're billboards. You know, if you think that if you think that you're just wandering around on this planet and nobody's noticing, you know, we're billboards. Every person we encounter every day, they get the message. Every person we encounter every day, they get the message. What message is on your billboard? What message is on your billboard? Is it depressed, exhausted, burned out, defeated, overwhelmed, too busy, angry, fearful, anxious, defensive, resentful? Or is it the sort of confident, joyful, enthusiastic, invigorated message? What message are you sending to the world? What message are you sending to the world? Because people getting the message, every single person who passes you every day, every person who talks to you, every person who encounters you every single day, they're getting the message. What message is on your billboard? And I don't know if you've noticed from time to time, you're driving down the highway, they've got these big blank billboards. There's a few blank billboards walking around this world, isn't there? What's on your billboard? What's on your billboard? Because ultimately, that's going to impassion people to join with you. Confident, joyful, enthusiastic, invigorated. Everybody wants to be around people like that. People want to buy stuff from people like that. Yes or yes? Yes. Confident, joyful, enthusiastic. You've got to get in the zone. Physically, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually. You've got to get in the zone. People can see that. People can notice that. Confident, joyful, enthusiastic, invigorated. 3 questions. What do you want? You want to be happy. What are we here for? Become the best version of ourselves. What do we all want a little bit more of? Energy. Where's the connection? Well, when you look at the things that truly make you happy, and I'm talking about happiness, people, I am not talking about pleasure. And there is a great difference between happiness and pleasure. A modern culture doesn't understand the difference between the two. A modern culture often confuses pleasure with happiness. What is the difference between pleasure and happiness? Pleasure cannot be sustained beyond the activity producing the pleasure. You eat, you experience pleasure. You stop eating, the pleasure stops. That's why we don't stop eating. We're not hungry. We are not hungry. We're not we like the pleasure of eating. We're not hungry. That's not why we eat. We like the pleasure of eating. Pleasure. You eat, you experience pleasure, you stop eating, the pleasure stops. What's the difference between pleasure and happiness? Happiness is, well, most people don't feel like working out that often, you know. But when we work out, we're always glad we worked out. Yes or yes? Yes. That's happiness. Happiness can be sustained beyond the experience producing the happiness. Happiness can be sustained beyond the experience producing the happiness. And you measure the value of an activity not before it happens. You don't say, oh, that's going to feel good, that's a good activity. No. You measure the value of activity in retrospect. Looking back on that activity, you find the true value of an activity. And that's what sets you people apart. You've discovered that there's a difference between pleasure and happiness. Most of your peers are running around trying to put pleasure against pleasure, against pleasure, against pleasure, trying to create a life of happiness by backing pleasures up into each other. And you can't do it. You've realized that if you actually go out and discipline yourself to do something, that it will create a happiness that is lasting in a changing world. And that's what we want. We want to create a lasting happiness in a changing world. And that's what I'm talking about. And when you look at the things that truly make you happy, they're all things that are disciplined. Physically, exercise regularly, eat the right sorts of food, sleep regularly. Emotionally, give focus and priority to your relationships. Intellectually, read great books that expand your vision of yourself and expand your vision of the world. And spiritually, take that time to step into the classroom of silence, to get reconnected with yourself and work out really who you are and what you're here for. The things that truly make you happy, physically, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, are also the things that cause you to become the best version of yourself. Yes or yes? Yes. And they're exactly the same things that flood your life with energy. And that's the connection. We simply have to start choosing these things. In every moment of every day, we choose between happiness and misery. In every moment of every day, with every choice, we choose between happiness and misery. And sometimes, misery comes disguised as pleasure. Long-term misery very often comes disguised as short-term pleasure. Long-term misery very often comes disguised as momentary pleasures. In every moment, we choose between happiness and misery. In every moment, we choose between the best version of ourselves and some second-rate version of ourselves. In every moment, we choose between creating energy and using energy wisely and wasting energy. We've got to start choosing these things in every single moment of our day. We've got to start choosing these things. And what does it take to start choosing these things? Oh, it takes courage. It takes courage. You know, everything in life requires courage. And the measure of your life will be the measure of your courage. The measure of your life will be the measure of your courage. You go home tonight, you take the 5 people you most admire from the history books and you ask yourself, who would they be without courage? You wouldn't even know their names. They wouldn't even be in the history books. Lives are measured in courage. Why? Because everything in life requires courage. Everything in life requires courage. Whether it's playing football or coaching football. Whether it's crossing the room to ask a woman on a date or rekindling a love that has grown cold. Whether it's your first day at college or your first day back at college after 20 years. Whether it's your first day at a new job or your first day at your first job. Whether it's your first sales call. Starting a business, battling a potentially fatal disease, struggling to overcome an addiction. Life requires courage. And the measure of your life will be the measure of your courage. The question is, where will that courage come from? Only from an authentic understanding of who you are and what you're here for. Only from that quest to become the best version of yourself. Only when we begin to pay attention to the physical, the emotional, the intellectual, and the spiritual. Only when we begin to put these aspects into our lives. Only when we understand that if you pay an investment into these areas of your life now, you will reap a reward for a long, long time. Because the danger is to work a 140-hour week. Yeah, you might be able to do it for 3 weeks. Now, but what is going to be the cost to your relationships, to your health, to your business in the long term? You wouldn't run your $1 million racehorse 140 hours a week for 3 weeks or even 1 week. You've got to take care of your biggest asset. You've got to take care of your biggest asset. Because the more you take care of yourself physically, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, the more you're going to have those things. Confidence, joy, enthusiasm, invigoration. The more you're going to bring those stuff to people, the more successful your business is going to be. What is it? It takes courage. Life requires courage. The courage to step away from the crowd, to discover the best version of yourself, and to celebrate the best version of yourself. What else does it take? It takes perseverance. To succeed in anything takes perseverance. You know, and very often we have this phrase, overnight success, in our modern culture, and it is an absolute miscredited fantasy. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing. There's no such thing. Success is built, and it's built gradually, and it's built over a period of time, and it takes perseverance. My favorite example of perseverance in American history is the story of Abraham Lincoln. You know, many people believe Lincoln was just born, you know, ready to become president. They forget and overlook the fact that he was born into absolute extreme poverty. He twice failed in business before he became president. He lost 8 elections before he became president. He suffered a total nervous breakdown before he became president. This is a brief sketch of Abraham Lincoln's life. In 1816, Lincoln's family was forced out of their home, and as a child, he had to go to work and help support them. In 1818, his mother died. In 1831, he failed in business. In 1832, he ran for the Illinois House of Representatives and lost. In 1832, he also lost his job Later that same year, he decided he wanted to go to law school, but Abraham Lincoln's application for law school, rejected. In 1833, he borrowed some money from a business friend to begin a business. By the end of the year, the business was bankrupt, and Lincoln spent the next 17 years of his life paying off that debt. In 1834, he ran for the state legislature again and lost. In 1835, he was engaged to be married. But his fiancée died, and it broke his heart. In 1836, Abraham Lincoln suffered a total nervous breakdown and was confined to his bed for more than 6 months. In 1838, he sought to become Speaker of the state legislature and lost. In 1840, he sought to become elector and lost. In 1843, he ran for Congress and lost. In 1846, he ran for Congress again. This time he won, but in 48, he ran for re-election to Congress and again lost. In 1849, Abraham Lincoln applies for the job of land officer in his home state of Illinois. His application is rejected. In 54, he sought to become elected to the Senate again and lost again. In 56, he sought to become the vice presidential nomination. He got less than 100 votes and lost. In 58, he ran for the U.S. Senate again and lost. And then in 1860, Abraham Lincoln decided to run for president. I mean, based on what? I mean, I'm looking for the signs. There were signs there, right? I bet in 58, when he lost his race for the Senate, he said to himself, don't worry, Abe, you're going to be president in 2 years. It's all right, Abe. It's okay. This is what he said. He said, the path was worn and slippery, and my foot slipped from under me, knocking the other foot out of the way. But I recovered, and I said to myself, it's a slip, not a fall. It's a slip, not a fall. Perseverance. Perseverance. You give up too easy, or have you got that perseverance? Have you got that courage to persevere, to press on? Got that courage? Because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take courage, and it's going to take perseverance. And the measure of your life, you just go ahead and measure those two things in your life, and we can see what the end result will be. The measure of your life will be the measure of your courage and your perseverance. I saw Michael Jordan interviewed a few years ago, and Jordan was asked, by this interviewer, well, what's the secret to your success? As if anyone could say one thing. But Jordan took the question seriously, and he thought for a moment, he looked down, and then he looked back up at the interviewer, and this is what he said. He said, I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost more than 300 games, and 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. Throughout my life, and throughout my career, I've failed and failed and failed again. And that's why I succeed. Perseverance. Perseverance. Our lives change when our habits change. When do our lives change? Our lives change when our habits change. It's not freak luck, and God doesn't have any favorites, Our lives change when our habits change. Michael Jordan, here's a great example. Here's a kid who couldn't make his high school basketball team. Think about it. Michael Jordan couldn't make his high school basketball team. Today, he's arguably the greatest basketball player in history. Now, how does that happen? Some people say, freak luck. Some people say, gee, you must have had a growth spurt. And all of these people will be wrong. Our lives change when our habits change. When Michael Jordan couldn't make his high school basketball team, he came to his coach. He said, Coach, I really want to play basketball. His coach said, Michael, there are a lot of good players here at school, and you shouldn't be ashamed that you can't make the team. Jordan said, Coach, you're not hearing me. I want to play basketball. His coach said, well, Michael, I've seen you play baseball, and I've seen you run track. You're pretty good at those things. Michael, you should focus on the things you're good at. Jordan said, Coach, you're not hearing me. I want to play basketball. His coach said, well, to be honest with you, Michael, your statistics from the free throw line are pathetic. They're woefully inadequate, and they're keeping you off the team. So what does Jordan do? Practices his free throw. How does he do it? He makes 600 free throws every day for 10 years. He doesn't shoot 600 free throws every day for 10 years. He makes 600 free throws every day for 10 years. He won't let himself go to bed each night until he's made 600 free throws. When would you next go to bed again if you didn't go to bed again until you'd made 600 free throws? Our lives change when our habits change. When do our lives change? Our lives change when our habits change. The question is not, are you going to be successful at what you do? That's not the question. The question is, are you willing to make enough calls? There are 20 years of people considerably less talented than you, considerably less educated than you, who have been considerably more successful than many and most of you. The question is not, are you going to be successful? The question is, are you willing to make enough calls? Are you willing to persevere? Do you have the courage to step up when you've been beaten down? Do you have the courage to step back on the court when your team have trusted you to take the game-winning shot and you missed? Because that's what the heroes, the leaders, the legends, the champions have got. They've got that courage, they've got that perseverance. What's it all about? It's not about selling knives. What's it all about? It's about dreams. It's about dreams. Why do you sell knives? Why do you sell? Because you have a dream. You have a dream. And that's what you've got to get in touch with. Because nothing inspires the human person like a dream. Nothing motivates the human person like a dream. You've got to work out why it is you're doing what you're doing, because it's in pursuit of some dream. You know, and every single person you talk to in your day, whether it's in your personal life or your professional life, they've got a dream too. You want to get people excited, you want to get people enthusiastic, you want to get people motivated, talk to them about their dreams. You want to encourage other people to do what you're doing, find out what their dreams are. And show them how doing what you're doing can help them find their dreams, live their dreams. Dreams drive us. We're driven by our dreams. Nothing animates, inspires, motivates the human person like a dream. You've got to work out what your dreams are, because we get out of bed in the morning to live our dreams. And half the planet has stopped dreaming. More than half the planet has stopped dreaming. They just get out of bed every morning to go through the hustle and bustle, the day-to-day drudgery of life. They've stopped dreaming. You want to inspire people, you want to motivate people, you want to animate people, get them back in touch with their dreams. Teach people to dream again. You got one question you've got to be asking every single person in your life, and that question is, what's your dream? What are your dreams? If you're in a relationship and you don't know what your boyfriend or girlfriend's dreams are, you better rethink that. If you're in a relationship and you don't know what your husband or wife's dreams are, you better give that a real good look, because we are driven by our dreams. And we live our lives, and the way we live our lives, in pursuit of our dreams. Dreams drive us. Dreams drive us. You've got to get at that. You've got to work out, what are your dreams? You know, I got a dream book. I've got a dream book. It's like a journal. You know, I write my dreams in it. You know, and I write things I want to do, and projects I want to have, and books I want to write. And you know, from time to time I'd be flicking through a magazine, I see something I like, you know. I cut a picture out, I stick it in my dream book. You know, I write qualities I want to have in my character. You know, if I want to be more patient, or I want to be more humble, or if I want to have more energy, I write this in my dream book. You know, I travel a lot, so most mornings I work out on a treadmill. You know, and I take my dream book to the treadmill. You know, and I start running, and I start flipping through that dream book. So my dreams are always before me. And they just come true like that. Just like that. Just like that. Just over and over and over. Just dreams just popping out of nowhere. Why? Because they've got to be constantly in our mind. Constantly in our mind. Because once we train our mind to move towards our dreams, we start doing things every day that move us in the direction of our dreams. You've got to work out what your dreams are. And you've got to get in touch with the dreams of the people you love. You've got to get in touch with the dreams of your customers. You know? You ask people to talk about their job, you know? And most people who don't have to work for a living That would be those people who just, show up and get paid. They'll sort of talk like this, and talk like this, and talk like this. And then you ask them to talk about their dreams, their energy levels changes straight away. Yes or yes? So you want to engage someone in a conversation? First question is not, do you want to buy some knives? Do you want to buy some knives? They're really good knives. They are the best knives. No. No. Sell some knives? Ask people, what are your dreams? Start talking to people about their dreams. You start talking about people about their dreams, you raise the whole energy level. And then you tell people, and I sell these knives because this is my dream. How many people like helping other people live their dreams? Every single person on the planet. There's no more fulfilling experience on the planet. There's no more fulfilling experience on the planet than helping someone else fulfill their dreams. You let people know that you're selling your knives because you're in pursuit of a dream, people will come. People will most definitely come. They will support you. They will encourage you. It's about dreams, people. It's about dreams. What's your dream? What's your dream? What's the danger? The danger is you say to yourself, I'm too old for that stuff. I mean, he had a nice accent, but I'm just too old for that stuff. What's the other danger? The other danger is you say, I'm too young for that stuff. Now's my time to have fun. Can't be thinking about all those big questions, deep thinking, dreams, meaning of life. I can't be thinking about all that. Leave me alone. Now's my time to have fun. That's how most of your friends think. Let me tell you, most people spend the first half of their life saying, I'm too young for that stuff. And the second half of their life saying, I'm too old for that stuff. And somewhere along the way, they get kidnapped by what Henry David Thoreau described as a life of quiet desperation. They didn't plan to lead a life of quiet desperation. It's not like they sat around when they were in college and thought to themselves, when I graduate, I would really like to lead a life of quiet desperation. Maybe I could stop by and see the guidance counselor and see if he could put together a really good plan for me to put together a life of quiet desperation. No, people don't plan to fail. People don't plan to fail, they simply fail to plan. Napoleon once said, those who fail to plan can plan to fail. What did Napoleon say? Those who fail to plan can plan to fail. We've got to come up with a plan, and part of that plan is not saying, I'm too young for that, and it's not saying, I'm too old for that. Tiger Woods was 3 years old when he first broke 50 for 9 holes of golf on his home course in Cypress, California. 3 years old. Mozart was 8 years old when he wrote his first symphony. Charles Dickens, 12 years old when he quit school to work in a factory because his father had been imprisoned for debt and he wanted his father to be set free. Anne Frank was 13 years old when she began her diary. Ralph Waldo Emerson, 14 years old when he enrolled at Harvard. Paul McCartney was 15 years old when John Lennon invited him to join a band. Bill Gates was 19 years old when he co-founded Microsoft. Joe DiMaggio was 26 years old when he hit safely for 56 consecutive games without steroids. Yeah, I appreciate the courtesy, Chaco. Mother Teresa was 40 years old when she founded the Missionaries of Charity. 40 years old. Ralph Lauren, 29 years old when he created Polo. William Shakespeare, 31 years old when he wrote Romeo and Juliet. Thomas Jefferson, 33 years old when he wrote the Declaration of Independence. 33 years old. Mother Teresa, 40 years old when she started her work in Calcutta. 40 years old. I got friends who turned 40. They said, well, that's that. Sort of all downhill from here, isn't it? I just got to keep telling myself, keep it together. Keep it together, keep it together, keep it together, keep it together, just keep it together, keep it together, keep it together. 40 years old, she dreams a new dream, and in the next 20 years, she captures the imagination of the whole world. Do not say I am too old. Do not say I'm too young. Pablo Picasso, 55 years old when he painted Guernica. Dom Perignon, 60 years old when he produced the first glass of champagne. Oscar Hammerstein, 64 years old when he wrote The Sound of Music. Winston Churchill was 65 years old when he became Britain's Prime Minister and took on Hitler. Nelson Mandela was 71 years old when he was released from more than 20 years in South African prison. 4 years later, at the age of 75, he's elected President of South Africa. Michelangelo, 72 years old when he designed the Dome of St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. Benjamin Franklin, 79 years old when he invented bifocals. Frank Lloyd Wright, 91 years old when he finished his work on the Guggenheim Museum. Dimitri Yurdantis, 98 years old when he ran a marathon. Dimitri Yurdantis was 98 years old when he ran a marathon. And Arichi Araya was 100 years old when he climbed Mount Fuji. Do not say, I'm too young. Do not say I'm too old. Now is your time. Now is your time. What's your dream? What's your dream? Can you hear that? It's your dream trying to get out. Thank you.